It's playoff time here in the Allied Odyssey, and before we get into the games, we need to take a look at the 4 teams that made it and how they got to the playoffs. We'll start by taking a look at Team Liquid, the number 1 team in the group stage. Scream comes in as the 3rd highest rated player, and between himself and Sulcus, they're both in the top 5. They have been dominating, with Scream switching agents up a little bit and Sulcus always being on that raise. It's been a pleasure to watch these guys play. When we look at Liquid, they're definitely one of the most individually skilled teams on the surface of this earth, but also you have to praise them for their tactics in a lot of these maps. They came into the groups and won Fun plus Phoenix, but then moved on to beat Vodafone Giants, BBL, and NIP before finishing off with the tie that we saw versus G2 yesterday in the final day and the final game of the group stage. Going throughout this tournament, Haven has been Liquid's strongest map by far. They played it versus every single team and they won it every time, including the bounce back versus G2 after being destroyed on the first map. When we come into the best of 1 stage, that's what I want you to keep an eye out for. If Haven is played, I think it's fair to say Liquid get a pretty hefty advantage. Coming up against Liquid in the first round of the playoffs is going to be NIP. This team didn't look great coming into the start of the tournament, tying up with Vodafone Giants and beating BBL, but that was their only win throughout the group stages. They lost to G2 and Team Liquid, and then tied up with FPX 1-1. You really got to look down towards some of the players on this NIP lineup with consistency. It's Looker that really leads the charge. This guy is the 2nd highest rated player in the tournament and comes out with the most opening duels per round out of anybody on any team. That's an impressive statistic. It means NIP go ahead in the majority of rounds, but they're not able to close them out. And that is definitely a concerning factor when you're up against Team Liquid, who are now looking on form after that last game on Haven versus G2 yesterday. This is going to be a tough game for them for sure, but they did play head-to-head just 2 days ago, and maybe that's going to be something to build on for NIP now that they might have an idea how Liquid like to play. The second game of the playoff stage is Fun plus Phoenix versus G2. We're going to take a look at FPX's journey throughout the group stage and how they made it to be facing against the Goliaths of Valorant at the moment in the first round of these playoffs. It's the core 3 of Fabrican mixed in with Party Parrots. And I gotta say, these guys have delivered insane results considering how long they've been together. With so few games under their belt, you didn't expect them to be able to match up against the tactically deep team that is Team Liquid. And yet we went 1-1 in that game. For Fun plus Phoenix, that was an overwhelming victory, really. It was 13-11 on Haven, and they won in overtime on Bind. That's huge to put such hurt to Liquid. But we thought, okay, next is G2, and that's where things really gotta go against Fun plus Phoenix, surely. But 2-0, Fun plus Phoenix became the first team to take down G2 in a series that wasn't a best of 1. That is unbelievable. They then went on to tie with NIP and Vodafone Giants, which, considering the previous results, is kind of underwhelming, and to win versus BBL. Realistically, you gotta be pretty happy if you're FPX to be in this position. They've already beaten G2 and now they get a chance to do it again. I know Angel's been ready and roaring for that opportunity. We'll see if they're able to do it. But of course, G2 are never gonna be an easy opponent. The final team to grace our screens is G2 Esports, and buckle yourselves in for this one. They took 3rd seed coming out of the group stages, meaning they only walked away with €500. They were 1 map away from 2,500, which is just a little bit more. It's a bit more pocket money to spend down at the shops. For G2, they've got to be upset with how that group stage went. This is the worst performance in a tournament for them in the history of this lineup. But you also have to take into account some of the real-life struggles that are going on right now. Massive respect to David P for still playing this, despite his father passing away during one of their second games. The fact that he's still here and delivering massively, we really have to give him a round of applause for. Because frankly, I don't think I could do my job under those constraints, and his is a whole lot more difficult. For G2 versus FPX, this is a game that they want to win. It's revenge versus the first team to beat them 2-0. They had an excuse back then, and I think it's arguable they still do, but they're not going to want to use it. They don't want to pull that card. Right now, this is a best of one between two teams that were so close, separated by so little when it came down to those earlier games in the group stage. G2 are out for blood, and considering the run that they've had previous to this tournament, I think they're definitely one that you've got to fear. And those are the four teams competing in the playoff stages. They're looking to get their hands on that top prize of €6,000 on top of their group stage earnings. It's a best of one double elimination all the way to the grand final, which will be best of three. That is a very important factor because it's not like you get to pick a map. We should be looking at middle ground, nice, comfortable games for both teams, which means tight, competitive Valorant start to finish. If you're not excited for this one, you're watching the wrong damn game.